Hello everyone, I am the Warped Adventure. Today we're back with another deck talk. And this deck talk is on a partner combo that I found recently. It's a really fun one. I don't see it used much, but it is Keleth Sunmane Familiar with a pretty famous one, rograkh Son of Rogahh. And basically, Keleth is whenever a commander creature you control attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. And it costs 2 for a 1/1. And rograkh, it costs 0 mana. He's a 0/1 first strike menace trample. So basically, the idea is to get both my commanders really big, make them evasive, give them a bunch of keywords, have a massive board, and give all my commanders keywords to all my creatures, make all my creatures big. So not only is it a kind of Voltron strategy, but it's also a go wide strategy as well. That is slightly based on your commanders. So let's begin with the. I don't want to call it a Voltron strategy, but it's the easiest thing to call it. Um, so you guys know we're doing a different setup for this deck talk. Um, we're gonna be just talking about the more important cards of the deck because I'm trying to keep my videos on the shorter time. That way, people can enjoy them without having to sit through my nonsense for an hour. Because I know it's nonsense. But let's start with the Voltron part of it. First things first, we have Hero's Podium. Hero's Podium is a legendary artifact that costs 5 colorless. Each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other legendary creature you control. Costs pay X, tap, look at the top X cards of your library. You may reveal a legendary creature card from among them, put it into your hand. The rest go to the bottom of your library in a random order. Last part doesn't really matter. There's quite a few legendary creatures in this deck. And so by having those out, you get to buff them, but also buff your commanders, which, as I mentioned in the beginning, is super important to what this deck wants to do. So being able to do that is really nice. Next up, we have Quende, Pride of Femeref. Now, there's other ways to give your commander to give things double strike. As a matter of fact, there's better ways that I even have, but I'm always of the opinion that using the more obvious cards can be quite boring, and especially to build. But Quende works perfectly fine for me, and it works especially well for another card in here. But basically, Rograkh has first strike, and Quende says it's a 2/2 double strike for 4. Creatures you control with first strike have double strike. So basically, it just gives anything with first strike double strike. And if you have Audric, Lunarch Marshal out, he costs 4 for a 3/3, and on combat, all your keywords on all your creatures get given to all your creatures, basically. I mean, not all your keywords, but most of the more important ones, including Skulk for some weird reason. Anyways, next up is Sigarda's Summons. This one was a pretty obvious pick. Normally, I don't like to put obvious picks in my decks, but I felt the need to for this one. It costs 4 colors and 2 white. Creatures, it's an enchantment. Creatures you control with 1/1 counters on them have base power and toughness 4/4, have flying, and are angels in addition to their other types. Basically, that means after your commanders have both swung once, it buffs both your commanders by, well, Keleth by 3, Rograkh by 4. Really good. Next up, Basically, Voltron's strategy, I mean, I just want to deal as much damage to my opponents with my commanders as possible. And so, Ariella, I mean, Arlia? I don't know. Angel Warrior Chicken. Uh, Ari, the war leader. That's what I'll call her. Ari. Guys, this is Ari. Anyways, Ari, the war leader. She's a 3/4 flying vigilance haste. Whenever she attacks for the first time each turn, untap all creatures you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Pretty obvious ad as well. But also, she has haste, so if you have Audric out, gives your team haste on combat. And another really good one, which I find funny. No, never mind. I don't find it funny. I was about to say I find it funny because they cost the same. They both cost 7, but they don't both cost 7. I just cost 7 stupidity. That's how much. You guys ever wonder I cost 7 stupid to cast? Yeah, I'm pretty expensive. Anyways, Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight, my personal favorite angel ever. And I'm super pissed off that they turned her into an Eldrazi. So I'm heartbroken, but I think I'll move on. She's a 5/5 flying first strike. If a source would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, that source deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. If a source would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent half that damage rounded up. I think that one's pretty obvious why it's so broken. Because basically, you're gonna kill your opponents with commander damage twice as fast. Glorious. Now, the important ways of giving your team, giving your commanders evasion. First off, it's evasion plus a little extra. It is Victory's Herald. She costs 6 and she's a 4/4 flying. Whenever she attacks, attacking creatures gain flying and lifelink until end of turn. So, basically that means makes keleth and rograkh harder to block, because now rograkh has flying and menace and first strike and trample. Basically, he's really hard to block. And with keleth making him bigger and bigger, it makes it scary and makes it harder and harder to block. And then tack flying and lifelink onto there, and it's just flying, first strike, menace, trample. How are you gonna block? Lifelink making your life get bigger. It's great. Next up, we have Key to the City. It costs 2 colors. It's an artifact. Tap, discard a card. Up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn. Whenever it becomes untapped, you may pay 2 colorless. If you do, draw a card. So, while the discarding thing doesn't help this deck, it does give you card draw. So it kind of lets you mold your hand if you want. But the main thing is you can make your commanders unblockable. I suggest only doing it when it gets later in the game when your commanders are really big. But yeah. Moving on to things that make big teams. And so the 3 I'd say most important ones to do it with is first, let's start with Othari, Sun's Glory. I freaking love Othari. She's a 3/3 flying lifelink haste phoenix. Another way to give your team haste. With Odric, I mean. Whenever she attacks, you get an experience counter. Those are fun, aren't they? Then create a 2/2 red rebel creature token that's tapped and attacking for each experience counter you have. So, makes a whole bunch of rebels every time it attacks. More and more every time too. And if you pay 4, tap, let's let the train throw its little hissy fit here for a second, huh? You done? Sounds like it's not done yet. Oh, one last. Had to get the last word, huh? That all? Can I continue my video or do you want to interrupt me more? That's what I thought. Thank you for your consideration. Anyways, Authority, Sun's Glory. Fun. Her final ability is 2 colors, 1 red and 1 white. Tap an untapped rebel you control. Return Authority from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So, she's hard to keep off the field without exile. She's hard to block because she has flying and haste. And she's creating more. Okay, you guys didn't hear that. The train honked one last time. And she creates a whole bunch of rebels that enter tapped in attacking, which is just great. Next up, we have one of my personal favorite massive token creation spells, Nomad's Assembly. Cost 6, 4 colors, 2 and 2 white. Put a 1/1 white core soldier creature token onto the battlefield for each creature you control. That's really good. But, wait, there's more. It has rebound. And so, if you cast it, after it resolves, you can exile it and cast it again for free on your next upkeep. Yeah, next upkeep. And we have another good one, Visions of Glory. Create a 1/1 white human creature token for each creature you control. And it has flashback for 8 colorless and 2 white. This spell costs X less to cast this way, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone. So that's really nice too. They're both Nomad's Assembly and Visions of Glory. I like in here because they can both be casted again to make your team even bigger. So if you don't get too many on the first time, the second go round you'll get enough to make it a scary spell. And finally, for the benefits of having a big team, we have True Conviction. I have a rocky history with this enchantment. I hate it with every fiber of my being. It is just way too freaking broken. I feel like it should cost more like 8 mana because it's just so ridiculous. Basically, True Conviction costs 3 colorless and 3 white. It's an enchantment, like I said, and creatures you control have double strike and lifelink. No ifs, ands, or buts, they always have it. If someone fights your creature, hit it twice and you gain life from it. If someone attacks you, you can block and they have double strike and lifelink, and you gain a whole bunch of life and deal double damage. If you're attacking, double strike and lifelink. You see what I mean? It's 6 mana, and putting it in a deck means you make a good use of it. And so that means my 6/6 commander is now gonna have double strike and lifelink, but if you have Gisela out, it's just game over. You see? Or if you have Ari, if you have Ari out, it's game over. It's ridiculous. But it's in here because it's a good card, I guess. It's really good. It's too good. Anyways, moving on, we got Adrena. Adriana? Adriana, Captain of the Guard. She costs 3 colors, a red and a white. 4/4, she has melee. So, melee is whenever this creature attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each opponent you attacked this combat. And it says other creatures you control have melee. So basically it gives your whole team melee. And that's really nice when you have a big team, because then if you swing at all 3 opponents, all your creatures get +3/+3. That's really good, if you ask me. If you have Ari out, Then you attack again, and they all still have the first +3/+3, but then they get another +3/+3 if you attack all three opponents, and that still helps with your commanders because they both get the +3/+3. It's just really, really good. And I love Regina. She's great. Anyways, here's the one I've been talking about quite a bit. Audric Lunarch Marshall. 3/3 for 4. At the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn if you control a creature that has first strike. The same is true for flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. So like I said, basically all the abilities under the sun, he gives them if somebody on your team has them. I don't think anything in here has skulk. It's more of a black thing or a green thing. I think stuff in green has skulk. I don't know, but black does skulk the most. I think it wasn't a really popular ability. And finally, there is Impact Tremors. I mean, 2 mana for an enchantment that just says whenever a creature ETBs under your control, Impact Tremors deals 1 damage to each opponent. It'd be really good if it said target, but it says each, so it's really, really good. Because you just casted a Visions of Glory and got 10 creatures. Well, for that 5 mana you casted, all your opponents take 10 damage. Oh, you flashbacked it and got 20 more? Well, then all your opponents take another 20 damage. And when you swing with your team, because since you have Othari and Audric out, they all have haste, everyone's dead. Good game. See you next time. But yeah, that's the basic idea of this deck. So basically, this deck, you get your commander, you get rograkh out turn 1. If you really want to flex on people, get them out turn 0, which is just before you play a land. Then turn 2, you play Keleth. Turn 2, you also attack with rograkh, making him a 1/2. Then turn 3, you attack with both of these guys, and they're both now 2/2s. And just for everybody else's sake, try to attack the same person with the same commander, because you don't want to have to make them track 2 separate commander damages, because that's how partner works. And it's annoying to try and track separate commander damages. But I generally don't follow that rule always, so it is what it is, as they say. They don't say that in Spain, though. I don't think. I'm sure somebody has said it in Spain, but I just, Anyways, moving on. So basically, make your commanders big, swing out for big old damage early game, and slowly build it up over time. I suggest if you're gonna build your own rograkh keleth deck, get more protection for rograkh and keleth, because over time they're gonna get bigger and bigger and harder to block and harder to deal with, and people are just gonna start removing your commanders a lot. I ended up having to cast rograkh for 12 at one point because they just didn't want to let me have rograkh for good reason. But still, I suggest protection for your commanders, but I don't play optimally. I know how to, I just don't. So I don't play protection. I play removal in here, but I don't play much protection. I play some. I play what's that one called? Unbreakable formation, something like that. I play that one because that one's just obvious. But that's mainly for board protection, because I do a lot of token puke in here, so you want that kind of stuff. And Chiselle is kind of protection, huh? From, damage spells, but in Commander, who really uses shock to get rid of your creatures? There's a reason why people don't worry about that much. And then, if you ever kill somebody using shock, it is the funniest thing on the planet. You got him down to 2 damage, and for some reason or another, you have shock in your hand. Just kill him with the shock. I don't care how explosive your turn is. Just shock that person and laugh your heart out, because that is funny. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, perhaps leave a like. Maybe subscribe if you enjoyed it enough. And stay safe, stay healthy. Peace out, everyone.